Hi, I'm Lily Jenkins. I'm your clinician.
Hi, I'm Sarah Bearfield. I'm also a clinician.
Hi, I'm Sarah Johnson.
And we're going to be assessing Sarah on her muscle imbalances.
And also providing her correctives.
First, we're going to do the FMS assessment, and we're going to start with the deep squat assessment. I'm going to have my patient with her feet shoulder width apart, and she's going to have her arms up with the dowel over her head, and she's going to perform a squat 3 times. Probably score her a 1, considering her knees were caving in, also called knee valgus, and she also had an excessive forward lean. Now we're going to assess her hurdle step, and we're going to start on the left side. We're going to measure in centimeters from the floor to her tibial tuberosity to find out how high the hurdle should be. All right. 43 centimeters. So I'm going to have you hold the dowel across your back, resting on your shoulders. Your feet are going to be half an inch to an inch apart, and they're going to be within an inch of the board. So we're going to start on the left leg. So I want you to lift your leg up and over, tap your heel, and come back. Staying as still as you can and moving just your leg, and do that 3 times on each side.
Alright, now we're going to cool down with a couple of stretches. So we're going to start with a T-spine rotation. So this stretches your obliques, but it also works with your thoracic spine. So you're getting on all fours again with your shoulder, with your arms under your shoulders, and your legs under your hips. And you're going to, I normally take this in whichever side I'm going to turn, and I put it on my head like this. You're going to start with your elbow points to the ground, and I want you to rotate and try to get that elbow point to the scalp. And you come back down, point that out.
Okay, good job. I would rate the patient a 1 because she had to compensate with her hips. She also lost her balance, and there was movement in her lumbar spine. She also touched the band. Now we're going to do the inline lunge FMS assessment. I'm going to start by measuring her tibial tuberosity. 43 centimeters. I'm going to have her hold a dowel with one arm on top and one arm on the bottom. And what she's going to do is she's going to step and lunge on the board, and her heel is going to touch the number that was the height of her tibial tuberosity. So her heel is going to be at 43 centimeters. We're going to assess bilaterally, so she's going to swap her arms and then test the opposite leg. Overall, I'd probably score her a 2 on both legs since she lost her balance. Now we're going to assess her shoulder mobility. Give me your hand. We're going to measure the distance from her distal wrist crease to the end of her finger. Okay, I would say about 7 inches. I'm going to have you put your thumbs in fists like this. You're going to reach behind your back and push your fists, touch them as close as you can behind your back. I'm going to measure the distance. She gets a 3 because it is within 7 inches of how long her hand is, closing in the distance between 2 fists. So I'm going to have you switch arms. Okay. The patient also gets a 3 on that side as well. Now we're going to assess her shoulder clearing exam. I'm going to have you put one hand on your shoulder, and I want you to lift it to level and tell me if there's any pain. No? Okay. Do it on the same on the other side. No, there's no pain. So I would rate her a negative on that because there's no pain. Now I'm going to assess her active straight leg raise. So I'm going to start by having the patient lie on her back and have her knees over the FMS board. I'm going to be assessing her left leg first, so I'm going to be on the opposite side. I'm going to start with the dowel by her mid-thigh. You can just flex this left leg. since I'm assessing, and you're just gonna keep your legs straight and your foot flexed, and you're just gonna raise it as close to your body as you can, keeping it straight. So I just give her a 3 since her entire leg and lateral malleolus clears the dowel. Now I'm gonna assess her bilaterally on the opposite leg, and thigh again. And if you wanna flex the other side, and then just do the same thing. I'd also give her a 3 on that side as well, since her lateral malleolus cleared the bar. Now we're gonna assess her trunk stability push-up. So I'm gonna have you get on your knees. And so men usually start with their thumbs lined up with their forehead, but because you're a woman, you're gonna start with your thumbs lined up at your chin, and you're going to go down onto your stomach on the floor and line your hands up like this as if you're about to do a push-up. Good. Now I want you to complete 1 rep. If you could do 1 complete rep with the thumbs at her chin, I would rate her a 3. Now we're going to complete the clearing exam after the trunk stability push-up. So I'm going to have you get all the way down on your stomach. And I want you to complete the cobra yoga position and push your upper body up. Is there any pain with that? No. I would rate her a negative because she did not experience any pain. Now I'm going to assess our patient's rotary stability. All right, I'm going to have you get on all 4s over the board and make sure your hips are stacked over your knees, and you're going to keep your hands touching the board and then your feet also touching the board. I'm going to start you at what would be a score of 2. You're going to take your arm and then the opposite leg, extend them out, and then crunch them in towards your body and touch your elbow to your knee, and repeat. Definitely scored a 2 on that, but now I'm going to see if she can do a level 3. So you're going to do pretty much exactly what you just did, but instead of having opposite knee to opposite arm, you're going to do the same side, arm and leg. You can start whichever side you'd like. Since she was unable to perform a rep at score 3, we're just going to keep her at 2. Now I'm going to have her do a flexion clearing test. So you're gonna get into like a child's pose. So in other words, just get on your knees. And then you can have your entire torso like right above the ground and keep your arms out and extended and just feel it stretch. Are you experiencing any pain? No. I would give her a negative on the clearing test if she's not experiencing any pain. After testing all of her FMS assessments, she got a score of 15, which is pretty average. Now we're gonna do some PRI assessments, and we're first gonna start with the infrasternal angle assessment. First, I'm gonna find her xiphoid process at the inferior end of her sternum. And I'm gonna focus on the angle that my thumbs are at when she breathes. So go ahead and inhale. And exhale. And inhale. Exhale. 1 more inhale. And exhale. So you could see this thumb adjusting a little bit more than this side. So I would say that she's narrow and slightly asymmetrical. We're gonna start on her horizontal adduction drop test. I'm gonna start on her left leg, so I'm gonna have you roll onto your right side. I want your legs to be bent and tabletop. I'm gonna take her top leg and I'm going to lift it over here. So I want you to completely relax your left leg. Just relax it. And we're going to, because her left leg dropped below midline, I would rate her a negative. We're gonna assess bilaterally, so we have her flipped over on her left side now. I'm gonna grab her top leg, her right leg. We're gonna do the same thing. So I want you just to completely relax this leg. And we're just gonna drop. Because she was scored below midline as well on this leg, she also gets a negative. Now I'm gonna assess her on her horizontal abduction test. So I'm just gonna have you like extend your arm all the way to your side as far as you can. And you're gonna drop it. Perfect. And I'm gonna measure from the ground to her finger. She's at 29 centimeters. Now I'm gonna assess her bilaterally on her left arm. So do the same thing, extend your arm all the way out and then just drop it.
and she's at about 31.5 centimeters, which is a little uneven, which could explain some of that unevenness on her infrasternal angle test.
Okay, now we're going to be assessing her Erska adduction lift test. So I'm going to start with your top leg. I'm going to put it on my shoulder. I want your hips to be square, stacked on top of each other. This bottom leg will be at tabletop 90 degrees. So I want you to first lift your ankle to your top leg. So she gets a 1. Now lift your knee to your top leg. So she gets a 2. And now try to lift your body up. Okay, you can lower yourself. I would rate her a 3 on that because she did manage to lift her body up, but she was turning externally to face her chest to the ceiling. Now we're gonna assess bilaterally. She's on her right side now. I'm gonna have you do the exact same thing that you did. I'm gonna put your leg long, have your hips stacked, and then I want you to move a little. Have your knee at 90. Now try to lift your ankle to your leg. So she's at a 1. Now try to lift your knee up. 2, and now lift your body. I would rate her a 3 on that side as well because she also managed to lift her body up off the table.
Now we're gonna do dorsiflexion range of motion. The patient's gonna start with her foot in neutral position with the stationary arm of the goniometer on the head of the fibula, the fulcrum on the lateral malleolus, and this moving arm on the 5th metatarsal. And now the patient will dorsiflex. The patient started at 45 degrees and then moved to 55 degrees, meaning she only dorsiflexed 10 degrees, meaning it's under range. Now we're gonna do dorsiflexion range of motion on the left foot. She got 12-degree dorsiflexion, which means she's still below range. Now we're gonna assess plantar flexion range of motion, and you're gonna line up the goniometer the same exact way that dorsiflexion is assessed. Go ahead and plantar flex. She moved from 58 degrees to 14 degrees, which means it was a 44-degree plantar flexion, meaning that she was in range of motion, bilaterally on the left foot. She went from 52 degrees to 13, meaning her plantar flexion was 39 degrees. That's in range of motion.
Now I'm gonna be assessing her knee extension range of motion. So first, I'm gonna set up the fulcrum at her lateral epicondyle. The stationary arm is gonna be set up with her greater trochanter, and the moving arm will be set up at the lateral malleolus. The range of motion is at 0 degrees, which is in range. It should be at 0 degrees. Now we're going to be assessing on the right side bilaterally. We're gonna be setting it up the exact same way, and it's also at 0 degrees, which is within range of motion. Now we're gonna be assessing her knee flexion. So we're gonna set up the goniometer in the exact same position as knee extension. Now I'm gonna need you to go ahead and flex your knee. So we measured 125 degrees, which is in the normal range. Now we're gonna be assessing bilaterally on the left side. Okay, so go ahead and flex your left knee. 128 degrees, which is within the normal range of motion.
Now I'm gonna be assessing her hip flexion range of motion. We're gonna start with the fulcrum of the goniometer at her greater trochanter, with the stationary arm lined up with her trunk and the moving arm lined up with her lateral femoral condyle. Go ahead and flex your hip. She's at 93 degrees, which is under range of motion. Now I'm gonna assess her bilaterally on her right hip. And then flex your hip. She's at 90 degrees, which is still under range of motion. Now I'm gonna have my patient roll over on her stomach so I can assess her hip extension. I'm gonna have the goniometer in the same spots that I did when I was assessing her hip flexion. Now lift your leg up to the sky, but keep it straight. She's at 17 degrees, which is above range of motion. I'm gonna assess it bilaterally on her left hip. It was 12 degrees, which means she's in range of motion.
Now we're gonna do hip internal rotation, and we're gonna start with her left hip. We're gonna have the fulcrum set up at the anterior patella, stationary arm perpendicular, the moving arm at the midline of the tibia. Okay, I'm gonna have you internally rotate your hip, but you're gonna send your leg out to the side. About 35 degrees, which is within the range of motion. Now we're gonna compare bilaterally on her right hip. We're gonna set it up exactly the same. Okay, now I'm gonna have you do the exact same thing on this side as well that you did. She got 29 degrees on the range of motion, so she is not within range. She's below. Now we're gonna assess the hip external rotation, and we're gonna start on her left side. We're setting it up in the exact same way as internal rotation. Now I'm gonna have you do the opposite of what we did last time. So you're gonna rotate your hip externally and push your leg inward like that. Here. The patient is at 40 degrees, which is within range. Now we're gonna assess bilaterally on her right hip. She went 32 degrees, which is below the range of motion.
Now I'm gonna assess her elbow flexion on her left elbow. The fulcrum is gonna start at the lateral epicondyle. The stationary arm is gonna be in line with the acromion process, and then the moving arm is gonna be in line with her radial styloid. And notice that I'm starting her at 0 degrees. Go ahead and act like you're doing a bicep curl for me. She's at 140 degrees, which is in range of motion. Now I'm gonna assess her elbow bilaterally on her right side. The setup is gonna be the exact same. I'm still gonna start her at 0 degrees. On this side, she's at 150 degrees, but that's still in range of motion. Now I'm gonna be assessing her elbow extension on her left side. Setup for the goniometer is the exact same way as elbow flexion. See here that her elbow extension is at 0, but if it were to be like at -10 or a negative under, that would indicate hyperextension, but she doesn't have that. And now I'm gonna measure bilaterally on her right side. And she's at 0 on this side again, which means that she's not in hyperextension. She's in normal range. Now I'm gonna be assessing her shoulder flexion on her right shoulder. The fulcrum is gonna be in line with the head of her humerus, with the stationary arm in line with her trunk. And then you'll see when she flexes, the moving arm will be in line with her humerus. So go ahead and like flex your arm like you're reaching it by her ear. She's at 180 degrees, which is in range of motion. Now I'm going to assess bilaterally on her left shoulder. Go ahead and stretch that arm back like you did on the other side. And she's also at 180 degrees on this side. I'm gonna be assessing shoulder extension on her right side. You're gonna keep the fulcrum in line with her humeral head, and then the stationary arm is gonna be in line with her trunk, and the moving arm is gonna be in line with her lateral epicondyle. So go ahead and lift your arm up and do a sweeping motion. She's at 62 degrees, which is slightly above range of motion, but it shouldn't be a major concern. Now I'm gonna assess bilaterally on her left shoulder. So go ahead and repeat that sweeping motion. On this side, she's at 60 degrees, which is in range of motion.
Now we're gonna do shoulder internal rotation. We're gonna start on the right side. I'm gonna have my other clinician help to stabilize the shoulder. The stationary arm is going to be perpendicular. The fulcrum is going to be at the olecranon, and then the moving arm will be at the ulnar styloid. Push your palm internally to the floor. The patient got 70 degrees, which is within the normal range of motion. We're gonna assess bilaterally. We're gonna be doing internal rotation on the left shoulder now. The patient got 72 degrees, which is within the normal range of motion. Now we're gonna be assessing shoulder external rotation, and we're gonna start on her left side. We're gonna have the setup as the exact same as the shoulder internal rotation. Go ahead and pretend like you're gonna throw a baseball. Externally rotate your shoulder backwards. Patient is at 90 degrees, which is within the normal range of motion. Now we're gonna assess bilaterally on the right side. Externally rotate your shoulder as you did on the other side. The patient was at 99 degrees, which is above range of motion.
The first movement fault that we're gonna correct is a knee valgus in her right knee during a deep squat. And we're gonna address the overactive muscles first, which that's gonna be the adductor longus and the vastus lateralis. And we're going to correct that. For the squat with valgus RNT, I'm gonna have her perform a deep squat. She's gonna have the dowel behind her neck like normal. And I'm gonna correct this valgus in this knee by pulling it forward and forcing it out. Can I go ahead and perform a deep squat for me? As you can see, this really helps force that knee outward into the normal alignment instead of having it cave in like it originally was. Now to address the underactive muscles during her knee valgus, during her deep squat, which is the glute max and the glute med. I'm gonna have her do a leg lock glute bridge to really activate that glute. I'm gonna go ahead and lie on the ground and go ahead and keep your knees like that. Pull one of your legs towards your chest. And then if you want to just lift your hips up and drive through that heel and perform a glute bridge.
do it bilaterally on the other side.
Should really help normalize that intermuscular relationship between those adductors and that glute so that she will no longer have any valgus during her deep squat.
Now we're going to assess her second movement error, which is the below range of motion for ankle dorsiflexion. Overactive muscles are the soleus and the gastrocnemius, so we're going to address those first with rolling out her calves for myofascial release. So we're going to have a bolster underneath her calf, and I want you to get up and onto your hands and roll back and forth, rolling out your calf on the bolster. The next step for the calves, we're going to do PNF contract relax. So I'm going to have my patient have a band wrapped around the bottom of her foot. I want you to pull, but then I want you to contract or point your toes, contracting your calf all the way down your full range of motion, and hold it there for a second. Now come all the way up with your calf and try to stretch it as far as you can towards you. As you can see, the patient gets to go stretch farther after the contracting. Relax all the way and stretch. Now we're going to assess the underactive muscles, which is the anterior tibialis, and we're going to do that through the open 1/2 kneel ankle mobility. So I have a dumbbell here, so I want you to get onto your knees into a lunge position, and now open your knee outward, like that. You're going to hold the dumbbell or kettlebell. I want you to really lean into it and go down sideways and come back up. Now we're going to do it bilaterally. Now we're going to assess her third movement error, which is being under range of motion on the hip flexion. So we're going to start by addressing the overactive muscles, which is the psoas major and the rectus femoris. We're going to start with the PNF hold relax. So I'm going to have you get into a lunge position onto the floor again. Hinge your hips forward into the stretch. Drive your bottom knee into the ground as if you're like moving it along the floor, but don't actually move your knee, and you're feeling the contraction in your hip. And now I want you to go back out of the stretch and then go further into the stretch without the contraction and feel that release. Now we're going to do it bilaterally. Now we're going to assess the underactive muscles, which are her gluteus maximus, and then her hamstring muscles, which are the semitendinosus and the semimembranosus. By doing the leg lock glute bridge. I'm going to have you get onto the floor and then lay on your back and lift one knee to your chest and then drive through your heel on the planted foot and raise your hips up. Now we're going to do it bilaterally.
The final movement error for our patient is going to be a below range hip internal rotation. So first we're going to address the overactive muscles, which is going to be our hip flexors, so the psoas major and the rectus femoris, as well as the adductor muscles, so the adductor longus, brevis, and magnus. First we're going to do a 90-90 hip shift, which is going to inhibit those hip flexors while activating those glutes. I have my patient lie on the ground on her back, and she can put her feet against the wall and make sure her knees are at 90 and so are her hips, so called the 90-90 position. I'm going to place this roller between her knees, and she's really going to focus on pulling her hips back one by one. So start by pulling your right hip back by focusing on shifting that femur down. And then she's going to reverse and do it on the other side. It's a very subtle movement, so you may not see much movement really happening. Now we're gonna address her underactive muscles, which was her glute maximus, glute medius, and the TFL. And we're gonna address that by doing a leg lock glute bridge. So this is gonna focus on unilateral movement, so she'll just, of course, do it bilaterally. So I'm gonna have you lay down on the ground. And I'm gonna have you pull, I would just like straighten your knees. Yeah, perfect. And then I'm gonna have you pull one knee to your chest. And then you can go ahead and put one foot on the ground underneath. And you're just gonna perform a glute bridge. You can just do 2 or 3 reps of that. And now you can switch sides to address it bilaterally. Now we're going to do those reassessments for our patient. So the first thing we're going to reassess is her deep squat. So you can go ahead and form that deep squat again with holding the dowel over your neck. And just doing one. Yep. Notice how there's no more knee valgus, which means those correctives did work.
Next reassessment we're going to assess is now her dorsiflexion. Her tibialis anterior is underactive, and her soleus and her gastrocnemius are overactive, and she's under the range of motion for dorsiflexion. So we're going to assess them now. Go ahead and dorsiflex. Her left dorsiflexion is 18 degrees, which is within range of motion. Now we're going to assess bilaterally on her right ankle. Her right ankle dorsiflexion is at 15 degrees, which is also within the range of motion.
Now we're going to reassess her hip flexion on both legs since it was under range when we initially tested it. Go ahead and flex that hip for me. At 125. That is in range. We're reassessing her hip flexion bilaterally on her right side. Go ahead and flex that hip. She is at 115, which is in range of motion.
We're going to reassess her hip internal rotation on her right side since she was below range of motion. Go ahead and internally rotate your hip. You got 35 degrees, which is within the range of motion.